Oh, hey there! I'm happy you came back for this third episode of the Deno series. Today's subject is running stuff on Deno. I brushed over this on previous video because I knew I would cover this in more detail today. One of the things I truly love about Deno is that it's chock full of tools right out of the box. I can be productive in seconds without any setup. This video is sponsored by. If it is your first time visiting this channel, welcome. If you are a subscriber, I love you. So to get us started, I created a new file that I called movies.js. And in this file, I'm just going to write a function that I will export called getMovieByTitle. This function will take an API key and the title. Then we'll return a promise through the fetch function to our endpoint that's going to fetch all the details of a movie given its title. So we need the domain, omdbapi.com / and then we need to pass our API key like this. So API key. And then we'll pass our term as the title encoded for a URI like this. Just make sure that if the title has any special character, they get escaped properly so they don't become all weird at the end of the pipe. And then parse the response as JSON. So if I want to test this, I can just bring a sketch file, import my function from movies.js and call the function getMovieByTitle. And now the important part is the API key might change from user to user. So for this purpose, I'm going to store it in the global environment. So I will use the Deno-env namespace get function to get from the environment the OMDB API key variable. And then I can put in a title, let's say Tron. And finally, we can just get our movie and console log it so we can see it. So now I can bring up the console for the very interesting part where we're going to actually run our code. In this case, I do need to set my environment variable. And then I can type in the Deno run command. And now I have to give the right permission to my process for this to be successful. The first thing I need is to give access to the network because I'm doing an HTTP request. The second thing I need is to give access to the global environment variable. So I'll say allow net and the domain omdbapi.com and then allow-env for the OMDB API key, referring to the key that we use in the getMovieByTitle function. Now we just have to write the file that we need to execute and run it. Here we see that it was successful. We get the whole object, the title, the plot. So that was a successful run. So we can test other permissions. I created this new file that I call cli.js. We're going to create a little tool that's going to allow us to fetch any movie given its title, and then write them to a file so that we can accumulate all of our favorite movies. So I'm importing my function here, getMovieByTitle. And then if I need to call it getMovieByTitle, I know that I need the environment variable, OMDB API key, and then the title. Now the title need to come from the command itself, right? So we'll type in Deno run, our file, our permission. We want to be able to add the title that we want to fetch and pass it to a program. So this is how we're going to do this. So the Deno args property is an array of all the options passed after the file name separated by spaces. So this creates an array of all the value. The first value is obviously is going to be our title passed to our getMovieByTitle function. So once we do that, we'll have our movie. And with this, we can write a text file. The first argument that we need is the path for that file. We'll just call it movies. The second argument is the text that we want to write on that file. So what is going to be movie, title, colon, and then the movie plot. Finally, I'm just going to add the return carriage so that every time that I run this command, I will append the value at the end of the file. So I'll have the movie title and the plot and a return carriage, the movie title and the plot and a return carriage, and so on and so forth. And when this is all resolved, I'll just write a little message to my console, just say that we're done. So now let's bring up my terminal. Know that I set the API key to my environment, so I'm not going to type it every time that I run the command. So Deno run allow-net like before, allow-env, now we need the allow-read, because Deno CWD requires read access to know where we are in the file system. And now allow-write, because we're writing a file, right? And the name of our file. Finally, the title of the movie we want to fetch. Now we cross our finger, hope that everything works. Okay, we got it done. That's a good sign. Let's see if we have our movies file. And we do. So we have the title, a column, a space, and the plot. Perfect. So something that's interesting about permission, if we fail to grant all the right permission from the beginning, we could save ourselves with the prompt flag. So we can write Deno run and prompt, then our file name, and let's put a title, Tron. What the prompt flag is going to do is each time the code reaches something that requires permissions, is going to prompt the user to ask whether they want to grant or deny the permission. So let's hit enter. And now we see the first request is to have access to the environment for OMDB API key. We can either grant or deny this. Let's grant it. Then it asks if we want to give access to the network to access omdb.com. Let's grant that. Then if we want to read access to the current working directory, let's grant. And finally, if we want to grant write access to our current working directory, let's grant that. And here it goes, done. Let's check our file again. And now we have the imitation game and Tron. Perfect. Now what I think would be nice if we had a way to read that file and display it nicely to the user. So for this, I'm just going to add a new option that we'll call simply action. So we'll need an action and potentially the title. And now we'll say if the action is fetch, we'll do this bit here, what we were doing just before. And else if action is equal to display, we're going to do is to call the Deno read file function and put in our path. And then call it display movies function. I'll get back to this one. Finally, let's just be safe about it. And if the user typed anything else, then fetch or display. We can write a little message. There are no action, whatever the action they wrote, like this. One thing I would like to do now is to wrap this into a conditional import meta main. So this is going to say, let's run this code only if this file was directly called by the run command. So this avoid all of this code to be run if we're trying, for example, to test something in this file, or we're importing that file into another module. Because here we're going to write a new function called display movies that takes some data. And now what I would like to do is to display all the data into a fancy little terminal-based file reader. So for this, ideally, I would need to have access to the console size so I can present it properly. So we saw a bit earlier, there's a console size function. So columns, rows, from Deno console size. Now we need the RID of the current terminal, like this. And once we have this, we'll write to that console whatever a new function called prepare for viewport will return. So the prepare for viewport function takes two arguments, data, and an object that needs the columns, the rows, and a title. Right now I'll just name it My Movie Collection. This function will be available from a utility file that is on the GitHub account of the IY series. Just paste this in here again. The link will be in the description probably, so if you cannot type in here. So with all of those changes, let's test our new file. And now we know that we need the action. So let's put fetch and the name of our new movies, War Games. And let's try this, hit enter. So here we see that it was done successfully, and let's check our file to confirm. And War Game is here. So we have the imitation game, Tron, and War Game. Excellent. So we tested our fetch. Now let's test our display. But before we go too far, let's remember that we use the console size function. And the console size function is an unstable API. So we need to add the unstable flag. And now let's try this, enter. And now, yay, we see our fancy little document displayer. It at the top shows our title, and then it restrains the width of our paragraph and make everything align properly. So that's pretty nice. Let's play with the prepare for viewport function a little bit more. And before this, let's use the watch option. So watch is very interesting. So it's going to run the code once and then start listening for changes on our file. So for example, let's run enter. We see again, everything works perfect. What if we change the title? So maybe let's call it instead movies about software. Save. And we see right away, we see the update. So here we pass to our function, the columns, the row, and the title. There's also a ratio property that defines how wide the text can be. Right now, I think the default is 0.8, so let's try 0.3. Ooh, now it's all tight. And there's not enough space, so we get the little more thing at the end. Okay, let's try 0.6. Oh, that's nice. 0.95. That's pretty wide. Let's go back to 75. There we go. Awesome. So before we close this chapter, I want to talk about one more flag, is the allow-run flag. This flag allows the code to run a command, for example, ls or git, or anything else that you have on your system. That command won't be executed in the same sandbox as Deno, meaning that a malicious developer could technically write something like this. Let's say const process equal to Deno run the command ls, everything here, and then we can await the process status. And now if I were to run this Deno allow run, you'd see that it just gave access to all my file system without me giving specifically the allow-read permission. So giving the permission to run any command would be a huge security risk. Always use allow-run along with the specific command you want to run. For example, allow-run git to allow for git access to the current directory. I intend to do a full video on Deno run later down the line. Finally, I've avoided using it up until now, but there's also a allow all permission that, as the name implies, allow all of the permissions. Go something like this, Deno run, allow all. There's also a shortcut for -A. It's fine to use it when you're developing some code, but don't be lazy. Use the appropriate flags when you're running code, especially if it comes from the internet. When you'll get bored of writing your command and all of its permission, you may consider simply writing an executable. We can do it something like this. Let's just echo the command into a file called ilm for I love movies. And now we just need to give execution permission on this file. And we can just run it, ilm. There we go. Display our very nice movie database here. That was a long one, or at least I think. I guess I'll know when I'm done editing this, right? In this video, we saw how to run stuff on Deno, but more importantly, how to run stuff on Deno safely using the permission flags. On the next episode, we will resume our Deno journey and explore all of the tools that can help us write better code. Things like a linter, a formatter, a test runner, and a documentation generator. As always, I hope you learned something today and that you'll come back soon. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you can't afford it, consider sponsoring me or the Deno community. All of the links are in the description below, along with the IY repository. Okay, bye now.